Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Elliot, and welcome back to This and That Reviews, where I take movies and compare them to theme park attractions. Um, this is scary. That'll make sense later. This is my review for the newest scary movie titled Scary Movie slash Scary Movie 3, because it's kind of the third part of the Wayans brothers like their idea for Scary Movie, and it's also kind of a sequel to the last one, which would make it Scary Movie 6. But instead of calling it Scary Movie 6, or saying that it's a reboot and titling it Scary Movie 3, they decided to title it Scary Movie, which is the title of the original one that they did. And I hate when studios do that. It might be a joke when that Scream did that. And I hate the fact that they did that. Because then you have to refer to each of them as like the year that they came out. So it's like Scream 2026 or 2025 or whatever year that came out. That's why it's so difficult. It's like, oh, did you see Scream? And you're like, which one? The original or the reboot requel thing? And in all honesty, it might be a joke on that. I would not put it past them that it's just a joke on that. So for everybody that didn't watch my short review and they want a short review as opposed to the semi-long, I don't think I'm going to have a lot of thoughts about this one, but I might. But I didn't like this movie. And I go back and forth on, like, the reasons for why, and I've had some time because I'm posting this well beyond, and I'm recording this and posting this well beyond the day that I saw it, because I saw it Thursday. It is now Monday, the following Monday. I had a busy weekend, and so I didn't have time to record, and so I'm doing it just the next Monday, and I've had a lot of time to like dissect what I didn't like about this movie and what I thought was not great about it. At first, I just wanted to say that it was the jokes. Like the jokes just didn't work for me. But I feel like it's a bigger problem than just the jokes. The jokes are a problem. The big problem with this movie being specifically a comedy. Like, if you watch my Masters of the Universe review, I love that movie and I love the comedy. And I said in that review that the movie is 60% like whether or not you like the comedy and 40%, whether or not you like the story. But even if you like the story and you don't like the comedy, then the movie probably won't work for you. I feel like this is 100% comedy because it is not a story. Moment to moment, this movie is not a story, and it's not a movie. And what I mean by that is, and I will spoil one thing for you, but just trust me when I say this is one of the best examples that I can give for this movie on how it's not a movie and how moment to moment, this movie doesn't make sense and it's not trying to make sense. There's a scene where a character gets launched from a house into a spike. Like they turn to the left of them and they see like a mailman and he's like, this job sucks. And and then the movie immediately cuts to that same character just sitting in the house having a conversation. And so there is a logic leap into what the fuck just happened to that guy, right? That got launched from the house into a spike, into him just sitting in the house. Now, that is what I mean when I say this movie isn't really a movie. Moment to moment, like scene to scene, this movie makes no sense at all. There is a very, very thinly, perceived, creation of the movie. Like a plot line for the movie. There is a very thin plot for this movie. And that, I want to say, if you want to even kind of enjoy this movie, the first thing you have to do is suspend your disbelief that this isn't trying to be a movie. It's not trying to be a plot-based movie. There is kind of a plot in the way that porn kind of has a plot, but it doesn't. And it doesn't make any sense, even as you're watching it, not even like thinking about it later, but as you're watching it, you're like, how did this connect? Now, you could say, oh, I'm not going to Scary Movie for the plot. I just want to laugh. That creates your second problem. This movie, being a 100% comedy-based movie and a 0% plot-based movie, the way that they decided to do their jokes is they decided to throw a million darts at a board and assume that at least one thing is going to make you laugh. Because if you asked me, I feel like you could totally skew the results of this movie. You could like screen this movie, and like whenever they do like these, movie trailers where audience reactions and people coming out of a theater, all you'd have to do is say this. Hey, so you just watched Scary Movie. Did you laugh at a joke? Most people, I would say 95% of people would probably say yes. Yes, I did laugh at a joke. And then they would be like, what joke did you think was really funny? And then they would name something. And then somebody else would name something else. And then somebody else would name something else. And with that collated trailer of data, you would think, oh wow, this movie must be hilarious because like 1,000 people said a different thing about a different, part of this movie. This movie must be hilarious. Now, here's the thing about that. The problem with that data selection is that, yes, you will probably leave this theater having laughed at a portion of this movie. And that portion of that 100% of the comedy of this movie is going to differ from person to person. So if you were asked, did this movie make you laugh? You're going to say yes. There is probably one joke in here, at least one joke, maybe two jokes, maybe a third of the movie, maybe half the movie, right? There is going to be some amount that you will have laughed. And if you ask me if I came out of this theater, did that make you laugh? I would say yes. The problem with it is that your brain also understands the rest of the percentage that you didn't laugh. So if you said, oh yeah, I laughed at 10% of the jokes, your brain still remembers 90% of this movie wasn't funny to me. If you said, oh yeah, I laughed at 60% of the jokes in this movie, your brain will still remember, but there was a good 40% of this movie that I did not think was funny. And that's the flaw in this movie. The problem with this movie, the biggest problem is that there's no plot. But the other problem is that there are so many jokes that's like inevitably something is not going to work for you. So even if you have a sense of humor, and even if you like some of the jokes in here, there's a lot of things that are not gonna work for you. If you like how clever this one movie is that you really like, if you like that joke was really clever, you're not gonna like that this joke over here is not clever. And they just throw so many darts at the board in order for you to just to say that it made you laugh at some point during this movie. So if you ask me if it's funny, I would say yes. If you ask me if the whole movie is funny, I would say no. And again, humor is subjective. Maybe you find the entire movie funny, which I will then go back to my original statement. The biggest problem with this movie is that there is no plot. And I have watched so many of this type of movie. I have watched all the Scary Movies. I've watched all the spin-offs of the Scary Movies, like Date Night and Not Another Teen Movie and Meet the Spartans and, like all of these movies. I watched movie 43, which everybody agrees is terrible. But, like even in that movie, I really like the ball scene with Hugh Jackman. That's really great. The poop scene in that movie with Chris Pratt and Anna Faris is kind of insane. But like the Christopher Mintz-Platts, the with Zoe or Chloe Grace Moretz, where she's having her period. That's really funny. But the leprechaun thing is kind of weird with Gerard Butler. I have seen movie 43, right? I love Spaceballs. I love Robin Hood Men in Tights. I have seen my fair share of like comedy and, like where you're not really specifically going for the plot. You're going to for it to make you laugh, right? Where it's specifically a comedy and not specifically a movie. But the thing about like good movies, the ones that you want to rewatch, the ones that you think are good movies, still have to be good movies with plot. I would argue that Airplane, something that a lot of people like really regard highly as one of the funniest movies ever. And I have Airplane and the sequel. I would say that Airplane also doesn't have a plot. It has a very thin plot, but everything that happens within that movie is still within the context of that movie. You're seeing different people on the same airplane. It is still the same airport. It is all contextually based humor that even though the plot, if you had to describe the plot of Airplane for somebody, it would be like, oh, a guy gets on a plane and he has to land it because, something happens when it's in the air and he has to land the plane. And it's just a bunch of like character interactions of people on this plane. But there's nothing ridiculous about it. Like it is still in the context of it's on an airplane. You're not like looking out of the window and, oh my God, there's two aliens fucking on the wingspan. Like there's nothing outside the realm of what the movie is. And with this movie, because it's a scary movie, and it's based in horror kind of, and it's based in the horror genre, they go in so many weird directions, and it feels very much like how they've openly come out and stated that Mission Impossible movies are made backwards. Mission Impossible movies, for those of you who don't know, they start with the idea of Tom Cruise wants to do a really cool stunt, and then they do reshoots when they figure out how the movie gets to that really cool stunt. And the biggest example that I can give for that is, I don't remember what it was, or what the movie was, but it was the one right before, number-wise or title-wise, it was the one right before Final Reckoning. Or, yeah, I guess it was Dead Reckoning. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, if that's the one where the end sequence is the train, where they're on the train, and they do Uncharted in that movie, I'm pretty sure it's Dead Reckoning. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning did a bunch of reshoots to say, why does Tom Cruise want to motorcycle off of a cliff and parachute down? If you watch that scene, if you watch that movie and you look through all the hoops that they have to jump through in order for that to make sense, everything else, whenever they're, discussing a plan or something, that was all done in reshoots. There was an interview that came out and they said, Tom Cruise just wanted to do the stunt. And so we had to come up with a way to, to make that happen. Not to make the stunt happen, but to make it logically make sense in a movie to where that eventually happens. That is what this movie feels like. It feels like Mad Libs the movie. And I'm going to spoil another thing in this movie. So if you don't want spoilers, you already know my thoughts on this. Go watch the movie yourself. But if you're okay with a spoiler for this movie, it would be this movie says, okay, one of the biggest movies is Get Out. And the only thing that people know about Get Out is the sunken place. And there's kind of a hypnotizing element. And there's like a tea thing, right? So let's have Shorty go to the Get Out house and, Ghostface is the person that's gonna do the T thing because he's the evil guy in this movie. Oh, can we like shove in an It Follows reference? Yeah, we'll just have Shorty say that the reason why he smokes is because of his mom, and his mom was in. That's how we'll do a flashback, and it follows. Well, nobody knows a lot about It Follows, but they do know that the one car in the posters, in every poster, or in a thumbnail, on a YouTube thumbnail, everybody knows that one car scene. So we'll just have that car, and let's just say his mom is a squirter. That's something funny, right? Let's say his mom squirts whenever she has sex, and then when he open the door, like a gush of water like just rushes out because she squirted, right? And that's funny, right? And you're like, wait, but like, does that make sense? That why would this affect Shorty? And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because it's funny because it's his mom having sex in a car, and it's also an It Follows reference, so that we can also reference that movie. And then they're like, yeah, but how are we gonna fit a K-pop Demon Hunter reference? Like, and they're like, K-pop Demon Hunters isn't a movie. It's not a scary movie. Like, yeah, but it's really popular and everybody loves that Golden song. So they're like, okay, well, let's say when he goes into the sunken place, we'll say that he drops into an anime world, and then we'll do a parody of Golden. And so, yeah, but how does he get out of the sunken place? How does he get out of like the Golden? How does he stop being an anime character? And they're like, I don't know. We'll just say that he wakes up and he has 3 Asian girls next to him, so it was all a dream. And then you look at that whole entire scene and you're like, so wait, so none of that mattered? And the answer is yes, none of that scene mattered. I gave you a spoiler for this movie that if they cut out the entire scene, nothing in this movie changes, because literally none of this plot makes sense or matters. And it's just, do you think these references are clever and or funny? Did it is like somebody having sex in a car and squirting? Is that funny to you? Do you like K-pop Demon Hunters? Is that kind of funny if we have like a parody of it being about weed and having sex? Is that funny? Is that kind of clever? Is that really funny that like the sunken place is a K-pop Demon Hunter anime world? Is that kind of cool? Is that cool to you? It's like the movie is just constantly like poking you and being like, isn't this funny? Is this kind of funny? Is this it? And this is an encapsulation of this whole movie. I'll spoil something else for you. Two characters in regards to that scene that we just saw right there. Characters are outside of a house and they're like, how are we gonna get into the house? How are we gonna get into the house? Like it's a problem? Shorty just got out of the sunken place by realizing that it was just a dream. And you're asking, how on earth are we going to get into this house? You just had a character get impaled by a spike, and you cut scene, and then he's just in the house on the couch, and nobody addresses that. How are we going to get into the house is your question? I was like, this happens really late in the movie, and they're like, how are we going to break into this house? And he goes, ah, and the glass shatters, and a character goes, that was wicked. And if you think that I'm kidding, and if you think that I'm kidding, and that I'm over exaggerating this scene, and there's no way a character would just knowingly wink at you and say, that's wicked, Yeah, you get it? You get it? You get the joke? Because he did the thing. That thing from Wicked. That also isn't a scary movie. It's just, this is the humor of this movie. This is a small, minuscule amount of movie that I have spoiled for you. Because it is joke after joke after joke, whether it's funny or not, second to second to second. And they are throwing just a million darts at the board and hoping that you laugh at something. And you will. You will laugh at something. But it's not good. It is not a good movie. And I will close off this 20-minute, very short review by saying that if you've gotten to the end of this, if you've gotten here, and if you've made it this far through my review, first off, thank you. But second off, I would like to give you a reward. And I'm pretty sure you've never seen this movie, because I'm pretty sure nobody saw this movie. I don't remember the box office, but I know that it was low. I know that when it was new, I saw it in theaters, and I was the only person in my theater, Fackham Hall. It's a movie that is spoofing, like Bridgerton, basically. Like that era of movie, that era of life. Just like, you know, Pride and Prejudice, Bridgerton, you know, like that kind of Victorian era. And it is so good. It is minute to minute funny, like this movie is. Like every point that they can do a joke, they will do a joke. Whether it be a background gag, whether it be a thing that is being said, whether it be a physical gag, it is doing what this movie is doing, joke-wise. Like, it is throwing a lot of jokes at you, but it's all contextually based. It's all based in a reality that is created within the context of this story, and that is the difference. The difference between situational humor and, hey, isn't this funny over here? It's like if two people were having a conversation in a park, right? They're having a conversation and they're like, hey, do you want to smoke weed? And they're like, yeah, man, I want to smoke weed. Fuck yeah, I want to smoke some weed. I want to smoke some weed and have some sex. And then the other character is like, I want to smoke some weed and have some sex too. And then the camera cuts to like the grass, and they're like, what's going on over there? And you see like two insects, like, and they're it's like two ants, and they're like having sex, and they're like, yeah, man, we love having sex and smoking weed too. And then they're like, oh man, those ants over there, they're living it up. They're having sex and smoking weed over there too. And then a cockroach walks by, and they're like, hey man, I love having sex and doing some weed too. You know, like, that is the humor of this movie, of Scary Movie, where plot-based humor and moving the story forward humor with a story is what Fackham Hall does. And it's what a good parody movie will do. Scary Movie is basically... Oh my god, I almost missed my reference. I was going to say, because I stated at the beginning of this video that I compare movies to theme parks. I almost forgot. Scary Movie. If you want the Scary Movie experience, go look at this up on YouTube. If you don't live in California, you will not know about this. And if you do live in California, you will probably know about this. Look up on YouTube, Knott's Scary Farm, The Hanging. It is a show that they do every Halloween during Knott's Scary Farm, where they turn Knott's Berry Farm into a Halloween attraction. And they do an annual show called The Hanging. Play literally any single year. Every year it's different. Go to any year and skip ahead any amount of minutes and just watch it from there. That is the Scary Movie experience. That is the exact Scary Movie experience. It is a show where all they do is make pop culture references for the sake of making pop culture references with no story. It has a very thinly loose story about, oh, we want to hang somebody, and, you know, like, the worst offender of this year. And literally all it is just pop culture reference after pop culture reference after pop culture reference of that year. That is exactly what this movie is. It's The Hanging.